Hey guys, John V here from PhoneArena. Right now you're watching our video review of the Nokia Lumia 928 for Verizon Wireless. It's available right now. You could actually pick it up for the 2-year contract price of $100. So right off the bat, it is pretty aggressive in the price point category. It's similar in terms of specs to the 920 that AT&T has been selling for quite some time, but there are some noticeable differences to this exact model. For starters, it's a thinner and lighter body this time around. Instead of using an IPS LCD panel from before, they reverted back to using a 4.5-inch Pure Motion HD OLED panel in there. And for the camera lovers out there too, you're going to really appreciate the 8.7 megapixel PureView camera in the rear, which features some nice things such as Carl Zeiss optics, an f2.0 lens. You have also optical image stabilization, and this time around, instead of a LED flash, it's a xenon one instead. So how's it going to fare? Whether or not it's a great offering for Verizon Wireless or how it's going to compare to some of the flagships out there, we're going to find out in this review right now. You'd be hard-pressed to notice the difference in design between this and the 920 over on AT&T. They look pretty much identical, especially from the front. It employs the same familiar Lumia design DNA we've been seeing time and time again, but Nokia does improve in the fact that it is both thinner and lighter than its close sibling. It utilizes that taper design, which has become a staple amongst the high-end smartphones out there, where towards the side you have that taper, but towards the middle it kind of becomes thicker. So when you look at it from the profile, it has an illusion of being thinner. Beyond that, the build quality is good. We like the construction, very strong and sturdy. You have a plastic casing which does exhibit a lot of fingerprints and smudges, but luckily with the white color, it kind of does a better job masking them. Overall though, we can't say it is a fresh, look to it, but it's still very pleasing, and we definitely appreciate the improvements they made in it being thinner and lighter. With the display, it's very similar to the one on the 920 beforehand in the fact that it is same size, 4.5 inches, and same resolution, WXGA, so that's 1280 by 768, a little bit better than 720p, but it would have been nice to see something higher. But regardless of that, it's still very sharp looking, very detailed. Here in the web browser, in a zoomed out view, kind of difficult to make out the fine details, but of course that's easily remedied with just some pinch gesture. So not really a big deal in terms of detail, but the thing that's different about it is that they reverted back to an AMOLED panel. It's a 4.5-inch Pure Motion HD Plus AMOLED panel instead of the IPS LCD display that was used on the 920. So the benefits about that is that you get the wide viewing angles, those oversaturated colors. It gives you that wow factor, but you kind of notice that colors like white tend to be a little bit on the yellowish side, so it has a warmer color reproduction. Still very pleasing, great brightness output. They improved upon that so that you could easily still see it in outdoor conditions, even with the sun present, and also has the same level of sensitivity that we find with the 920's display, wherein the fact that you could actually wear gloves and still be able to actually register all your swipes and touches. Below the display, we're greeted to the same familiar Windows capacitor buttons, the same three. You have the back start button and also search button. Unfortunately though, when it comes to their backlighting, it's kind of weak, and right here, that notch, that's actually the microphone. On the opposite side of the display, you have the earpiece itself, you have your light and proximity sensors, and you have a front-facing 1.2 megapixel camera, which is enabled to shoot video in 720p resolution. If we take a look around the sides of the handset, we'll notice that both the bottom and left edges, they're completely clean. The majority of the buttons actually reside on the right edge of the phone. You have the volume control, dedicated power button, and a 2-level shutter key here. They have a good distinctive feel, but unfortunately the response is a little bit on the weak side. The rest of the handset's ports are actually found on the top side. You have the 3.5mm headset jack, you have the SIM tray here, the micro USB port for charging data connectivity, and finally the other microphone for noise cancellation. In the rear of the phone, we find its other main highlight. It's an 8.7 megapixel PureView camera with Carl Zeiss optics, optical image stabilization, an f2.0 lens. It has ability to shoot 1080p videos, and as for the flash, you get a xenon one. And finally, the last thing worth noting with the handsets, in the rear, you have these micro dots which make up its speaker grill. So here we are with yet another Windows Phone 8 device. On one hand, it's wonderful that you have that consistency with the platform. So if you're going from one Windows Phone to this, it's going to be an easy transition for you just because the experience is the same. But on the flip side about that, it's kind of lacking variety. But then again, you still have some personalization elements with its dynamic home screen here, start screen actually. You have all the dynamic live tiles, which aggregates some useful information. But beyond that, there's nothing really terribly new with the experience here. However, being a Nokia Windows Phone 8 device, it treats some of the enhancements that Nokia has with its Windows phones. And honestly, that's the biggest differentiator between this and, let's say, an HTC 8X or even a Samsung AT Odyssey, just because with the listing of applications such as Nokia Drive for turn-by-turn directions, or even things like Nokia Music, which is their own streaming service, it's just nice that really enhances its functionality over other Windows Phone 8 devices out there. When it comes to sending messages with the Lumia 920 and its on-screen keyboard, it's just a fantastic experience just because you get a lot of ample real estate to work with, so it's very spacious. And on top of that, with the Windows Phone 8 keyboard, it's super responsive and offers one of the better autocorrect features out there in most smartphones. And in general, the Windows Phone keyboard is just great to use. Likewise, we could say the same thing about the web browsing experience here on the Lumia 928, just because it features 4G LTE connectivity, so complex pages load up in a pretty good amount of time with Verizon's network. And on top of that, the other aspects of the web browsing experience, such as kinetic scrolling, pinch zooming, and even rendering on the fly, it's pretty instantaneous, so it's more than gratifying. Interestingly enough, we don't see any improvements with the processing power with the Nokia Lumia 928 versus the Lumia 920 from beforehand. It's actually running the same exact processor as before. It's a dual-core 1.5 GHz Qualcomm Snapdragon S4 Plus processor with 1 GB of RAM. So even though it might not be a quad-core processor, some like the other flagship devices out there, it's still effective enough for most tasks. For example, opening up applications, multitasking between any open apps that you might have, and even more processor-intensive stuff like gaming, watching high-definition videos. It does a great job with its performance. You could tell just moving even through the different applications. Pretty good, nice-looking animations and transition effects, so we really can't complain about the performance. Hardly a shocker, the Lumia 928 is using the same exact music player that's found in any other Windows Phone out there from before, so nothing different about it. It's still a very appealing looking music player, but in addition to that, you could actually use the Nokia Music application as an alternative if you like. Same exact functions, you could play, reverse, and all that, but in addition, you could also purchase content if you like with their store, and they also have a radio service too. As far as the audio quality of its speaker, we gotta say it is extremely deafening, very powerful, but it kind of has a little bit of a strain at the loudest volume setting. Out of the box, it's pretty nice and wonderful that you have support for a wide array of different video codecs. You have DivX, H.264, MPEG-4, and even XVID. No conversion whatsoever is needed for that. And as far as playback, you can tell by the performance right now, it's pretty smooth and quick, responsive, no stutter, no lag whatsoever. And with its AMOLED display, it really draws out some of the beautiful aspects of the video. Accessing the camera application is pretty simple. All you gotta do at any time is just hold down the shutter key for a couple seconds and instantly jump into the camera app itself, even in the lock screen. Now, it's the same UI as before. It's uncluttered. The majority of it is just the viewfinder up front. And on the right side, you have some of the icons for some of the different functions. Now, at the 928, it's wonderful that you have some manual controls available to you. So, for example, you could change the scenes. You can adjust the ISO, which is nice, exposure value, and even the white balance. So if you're that kind of person who likes to tinker with the settings, you'll definitely appreciate that. And as far as taking photos, it's pretty simple. You could either use the shutter key or just touch the display to actually take a photo. And what makes the 928 also unique is the fact that you have some additional shooting modes available too, which is nice. For example, you have Smart Shoot, which basically takes a series of photos, and from there you could mix and match or stitch the faces on people, so you get the best shots available. And on top of that, you have an erase feature, so if someone gets into your shot, you could actually delete them. Cinematograph is like an animated GIF. You can make an animated GIF with the photos, and panorama, of course, is self-explanatory. Now, if you're big in taking photos, you'll really love the Nokia Lumia 928 and its 8.7 megapixel PureView camera, which features Carl-Zeiss optics, optical image stabilization, f2.0 lens, and a xenon flash. And overall, we can't complain about the quality. It's superb, definitely above average. In situations that there's plenty of lighting, you'll take some sharp-looking photos, some natural-looking colors with them too. It's especially great for portrait shots and even macro shots, just because you get that nice bokeh effect, which produces produces that out of focus, look to the background scenery and focuses all the attention and detail to the thing that's up front. In lower lighting conditions, it still does a great job. It does better in the fact that it brightens up the shots better than some other smartphones out there, but it's at the expense of producing some softer looking tones. The detail's not the best, and on top of that, you notice just a little bit of noise. It's usually combated by the xenon flash, of course, and like I said, overall, it really takes some nice looking photos. Even though the handset does a great job of applying different post-processing effects to further enhance the quality of the images it takes, you could actually use the Creative Studio application to do some more editing if you'd like. So for example, you could apply different filters to your photos, and beyond that, you could continue to edit them, and you could either apply a focus object or a radial tilt shift effect. So basically, you have that nice blurring effect going on with the photos. It's just a little bit of work, but hey, you could get some pretty neat looking photos. As for its 1080p video recording quality, again, there's nothing to complain about. It's just good looking. It's not the best, but it's definitely up there. Now, the biggest things that really stand out to us is just that with details, it tends to be a little bit on the speckled side, and you might notice just a little bit of artifacting when you're panning very quickly. And lastly, it just seems as though its exposure is super sensitive. It's very jumpy. It's not as gradual as we like, as you can notice right there. But the other highlights about it is that it has optical image stabilization, so you have a very smooth look to the video, nice playback too, and it does feature continuous autofocus, though when you're trying to capture something that's closer, it does take a little bit of time, but overall, it's still nice looking. Calling quality on the Lumia 920, it's nearly superb just because on both ends of the line, we didn't have any issues with voices. With the earpiece itself, it has just a very strong and powerful output that even on the mil setting, voices are more than audible. When you switch to using the speakerphone, the same results apply. It's very strong and loud, but it tends to have just a little bit of muffle going on the loudest volume setting. The other great thing is the noise cancellation feature of the smartphone. It definitely works just because our colors couldn't differentiate our voice when we were in a quiet environment or in an area that had a lot of wind. Battery life is pretty much on par to what we've seen already on the Lumia 920 with AT&T. They both feature LTE connectivity, but with the 928, nothing different about it whatsoever. In fact, we're able to get approximately 15 hours of battery life with normal usage that consists of mostly surfing the web, sending out text messages, and emails. When we use it strictly as a mobile hotspot, we're able to get close to 9 hours of battery life. It's not the best out there, but it's more than adequate to get by at least a solid working day. In the back of our minds, we can't help but think that the Lumia 920, it's a little bit late to the game, especially when you think about the 920 over in AT&T, which has been out for quite some time now. Now, this is the first time we're seeing a super high-spec Nokia Windows phone for Verizon Wireless. We've already seen the 822, but this definitely beats it in every hardware category, and arguably is the best Windows phone right now on Verizon's lineup. And who knows when we're going to see another Windows phone between now and, let's say, in the next few months. So if you love taking photos, this is something that's going to appeal to you just because with its pure view camera, it definitely brings the goods, especially in lower lighting situations. It draws out some details, brightens up the shots better than some other handsets, and with its optical image stabilization, you get some really nice looking videos as well. But the best part about the handset is it's priced aggressively at $100, so it's right there in the mid-range market. You're not going to spend a whole lot of money, and you're getting a very respectable Windows phone out there. So if you'd like to learn more about the Nokia Lumia 928, guys, you could check out our website, PhoneArena.com. It's John V. Thanks for watching.